Welcome to this, our very first Creativity for Wellbeing workshop. And I am delighted to say that we're joined by the illustrator, Veronica Dearly today. Hi, Veronica.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really good, and thank you for joining us. Now, Veronica and I are going to be really honest about this. This is the first time we've done something like this. So we're kind of feeling our way, but we're hoping that you will bear with us and enjoy this Embracing Change workshop. Veronica, can you tell us a bit about yourself to start off with and your fantastic new book?
Thank you. So I am an illustrator, self-taught. I started my business about 10 years ago now. Started doing things like wedding stationery, then a trip through the world of greetings cards, and basically I've just been feeling my way around, talking about the topics that I kind of face like in my real life. And I think that's where most of my successes come from, because I'm sharing things that other people are experiencing as well. I've gone back through like my body of work, and the concepts that kind of stood out to me as like the thing that's been most important throughout my life really is that you can actually do hard things, like even when you feel like you can't. So yeah, I've just gone through like the wheel of life and looked at all the different areas in which we might have to face hard things, and just put together some sort of advice. It's not quite a workbook, but it does have bits that you fill in. So it's like hopefully a nice balance between advice, which is not too sanctimonious, humor, and self-exploration really.
And beautiful, funny, relatable illustrations as well. And I think that's the thing that we love about your work, is that it isn't too sanctimonious, and you have, I guess some people would call them affirmations, but they're more real than perhaps some of the lofty affirmations we hear. So, things like, just because you can't do it yet doesn't mean that you'll never be able to do it. And it's a good reminder to us that we can do hard things, but also we now are doing things that we didn't used to be able to do. And we sometimes forget how far we've come, perhaps. And I wondered, how far have you come, from starting doing your illustrations? Does that feel like a mammoth leap, or did you ever think you'd get to this point?
Absolutely not. And it's really weird to have, I think the book arriving was like a real big career moment, because it has been a lot of trial and error and so much has been changing in like the world of business since I started. Just basically I started as an illustrator because I had done my own wedding stationery. I had 2 babies and was like, I can't afford to put them in nursery really.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, what can I do at home that will kind of start off with a little bit of money, but mainly it's just to keep me kind of sane really. And yeah, it's been such a journey through like trying all the different things and working out what running a business even looks like, which is not my skill set. And all the scary things that I have done along the way are really helpful, like to look back on, because life just seems to be like, no matter where you get to, there's always like a next big scary thing that you have to do.
I mean, it's, as I said before, it's really relatable, and we all do that. And having the moment, the kind of mountain that we climb, there is always seemingly another mountain, which is why today we're going to be doing your Embracing Change pages. And I should say that if you haven't already and you're watching this, you can download these from happiful.com. There will be a link in the information for this workshop below, so go and download them. And what we're going to do is these creative workshops, it's basically interview meets workshop. So we're going to be doing it ourselves. We encourage you to do it, and we're just going to have a chat while we're doing it. It's more about the company, I guess, while we're thinking about what we need and how we can get that. So we're going to start off with You've Changed, which is a bit about what's changed in our life, and really leading on from what you were saying, Veronica, about where you started doing your own stationery to where you are now. Before we start, I would love you to introduce the other person who's on this call, because we can see him just out of shot, but we are joined by Veronica's Fang.
Yes,
There we go.
He's looking. He's not going to look at the camera though, because he's worried that there's going to be pheasants in the back garden. So,
well, he's very welcome here today.
if he takes the bird off the garden, he doesn't know what's going to happen.
We love a dog at Happiful. So you've changed. You talk about the fact that things right now at this moment are exactly what they are, but they haven't always been this way. So we're going to start with that. And you asked people to look at where we were, what changed. And I'm going to do this as well. But I guess where you were, I mean, you say that you were, you were at home with 2 young children and you needed to do something for your sanity. And how did you get from that point of, this is what I've been doing before? How did you get to the next step? What step did you take to actually start to push yourself out there?
So it was like the beginning of, well, it wasn't the beginning of the internet. That would be that was a lot longer ago.
All the way back.
Kind of the beginning of like blogs were like a whole big new thing, and that was like what people were doing for success on the internet at that time. And it was just kind of like, I remember when I first started on Instagram, that was at the stage where you couldn't get it on an Android phone. So it was still like quite early days.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like tentatively exploring these like avenues of how to get myself out there. Like I was advertising my little wedding stationery business, which was very much based on the wedding stationery that I'd made for my wedding. I was doing like a mixture of like blogs and like print advertising, and just kind of, we were at the very beginning of like content creation being a tool for like growing your business, I think.
Yeah.
So I was just basically experimenting constantly, doing little doodles, and I think that the defining moment that I could see when I look back on sort of putting myself out there was like, I did a drawing with a pancake day pun, and I still get it out every single year because it feels like a full circle moment, but it said something like, I can't believe it's pancake day, it's really creped up on us. And I put that on my Facebook, and that was the first time I ever did anything that like just kept getting shared and shared and shared. And I was like, oh, so there's something here. Like, because up to that point, I think my work had been not necessarily funny, like it was kind of cute. And that was obviously the angle that worked. So, I mean, from that point, discovering that I needed to put out things that people really like, they're like, oh, I like that, I'm going to share that. That kind of informed a lot of the rest of my journey, like through sharing. I'd share the funny parts of my life and my work. I try and take those kind of sanctimonious quotes and then like cross a bit out and make them actually a bit more relatable, and talking about just the things that were facing me. So like dealing with small children, like trying to keep mentally healthy, which is a challenge. And yeah, so it's just been like that first time, my Pancake Day post, sort of, it didn't go viral in the way that we talk about things going viral now, but that was like, oh, so I need to talk straight to the people and give them something that they really enjoy. And yeah, that's kind of been how it's worked ever since then, really.
And was that more of your personality? Were you putting more of your personality? Because it feels very much personality led, your book, you know, there's lots of funny kind of side comments, but really humorous and really knowing, I guess, that it's not all hearts and roses. You know, there are moments where it feels like, as you talk about, you know, your bag of problems, it's almost like bin juice exploding on the floor. You need to clean it up and move on. So do you think part of that change was putting more of yourself and your personality into your work?
Absolutely. I think that especially starting out in weddings, I just was like kind of looking around me at what everyone else was doing and thinking, oh, that's how you run a business. You have to do X, Y, Z. And that's, I think that's the reason why I wasn't ever very good at it, is because I was kind of just looking at other people and trying to follow like some formula that didn't work for me, basically. And it's all been about being a bit more honest and silly and just the things that come naturally to me, rather than trying to like just come up with something for the sake of it.
That's so interested in and looking at your roadmap, where you were, where you went. It seems that where you were was looking at a new direction because you'd had children, and because, you know, the constraints that sometimes life puts on us when we have children, and financial, was to look at how you could develop something that you enjoyed doing and facilitated you being at home. But actually the next place that you went to was to really put yourself into it, which I know a lot of our listeners and people who read the magazine will know about, that kind of authenticity, but also doing something that really feels like it's you, rather than, you know, comparison is a big thing, isn't it? Sometimes we look outside ourselves and we think that's what we want to be, so we have to try and be like that person. And it sounds to me like the next kind of stop on your roadmap that we're doing was actually just using your personal voice and personality in your work.
Yeah, I think so. And just being confident enough to put it out there. Really, I think that's the thing, is like as soon as you write something down, whether it's a list or whether it's like journaling or anything, it becomes a bit more tangible and a bit more real and maybe a bit easier to process. And then the next stage of that is like putting it out into the world, and kind of building that community around it and just getting that reaction back, which obviously is really terrifying sometimes. Like sometimes you put out something really personal, or just something that absolutely doesn't work. There's always that sort of slight worry with putting things out there, but just having the confidence to say it, and to show people your work or whatever it is that you're creating, is like such a scary thing, but that's such an important part of the process to me.
That's so interesting. And in terms of where you are now, I mean, obviously the book is out. It came out a couple of weeks ago, came out on the 7th of April, and it's in the world. And you were just talking about the fact that you went and did a signing, and, you know, you're from your home and your own wedding stationery to having a book, and, you know, you've got over 120,000 followers on Instagram, which must also seem, you know, those numbers, they must seem a little bit surreal, because, you know, it's out there, isn't it? How do you feel about the place that you've got to now after kind of moving through all of that work?
Oh, I don't know. That's a weird question for me. Great. Like, I feel really proud, like, of myself, like, because even before starting the business, like, I was always really shy. Like, I found like just the basic parts of being like a grown up, like, to be quite challenging. So kind of looking back on that and realizing how far I've come is incredible. Like, it's great to have like a real life book, and yeah, it's wonderful. And it's been a really challenging few years. I think anyone else running a business will relate. So I think we're just in this weird like time at the moment where we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, and wondering sort of what's next, really.
No, I agree. And that's the realism that you inject, is that, you know, we're never going to stay the same. There will always be change. So this is part of why I really wanted to do this part of your book, is, you know, there will always be the next thing. So you've got your book. The business is really successful. People love what you do. I love what you do. But there will be other things for you. So for anyone who's continuing to do this with us, so it's what next? So where do we need to go next? And knowing where you've come from and the journey that you had to go on to get there, what do you feel is your well, I guess, where are you now? Where's your head now in terms of what's going to be the next steps for you?
Yeah, so where I am now is I've kind of approached it from more of like a personal angle, I'd say, because I've just moved to Devon last year, about 6 months ago. And yeah, so that's been like a massive change. And I feel like I'm right at the beginning of, like, I guess, the next chapter of my life, and working out how that works, really. Yeah, so the book came out, and I was and now I'm like, okay, well, what's next, really? Like, I feel like I'm sort of standing on the precipice, like looking out, like.
That's a big move as well. I mean, isn't from where you were before to Devon, is it a big kind of change of community around you? Is it
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know anybody, so it's like a whole new life, really, like, that we're starting. And so I think that, obviously, whilst I want the business to carry on, my focus now is very much like, the scariest thing, like making friends as an adult.
Let's talk about that, because a place to go in terms of making friends as an adult, especially if you were talking earlier on about feeling quite shy. You know, it's very easy sometimes in our work life to be able to, have these conversations when it's behind Zoom. When you're in your own home, it's quite comfortable. This is uncomfortable for me, doing something on camera. We were talking about that earlier on, because I do the podcasts. But if I were to be meeting you and sitting down and doing this, I would have had a lot of anxiety about that. Because meeting new people can be tough when you don't have the trappings of a house, or a community, that kind of safe space. So what do you think you're going to be doing about making new friends?
Well, so what I've done so far, it's been really scary, but I was like, I just have to kind of put myself out there. It is weird as well, because obviously, coming through COVID, I've always worked from home, but now everybody else seems to as well. So it feels like, if I'd arrived and was starting a new job, like in an office or something, it feels like that's a bit more of a natural place to not even necessarily make friends. I know that not everybody is like friends with everyone at work, but it's a bit more of a, I'm going to be around people, something's going to happen. So first of all, there are apps now, like dating apps, like Bumble, which I went on. I did chat to a few people, but I don't know, I'm not old-fashioned, but I don't think I'm ready yet for that.
Got you.
But there are a lot of people on there, so I would recommend giving it a go to anybody else who's kind of struggling. So the children are too old now for me to go on the school run, even, because everyone was like, oh, you'll make friends through the children. But I kind of have, because, like, one of my son's friends here, I've been going for coffee with his mum, and then my daughter's friend, similar situation. And then I think it's just about throwing yourself into it, like, say, like, looking at these little, I like Googled like local classes, and like the top 3 that came up were like how to make a business out of having alpacas, how to do like a pottery to make a cheese mold or something weird that I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then the last one was like a life drawing class, but you draw people that are fighting. Like, they were the top 3 things that came up, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting any of that. But I didn't go to any of them, so I wasn't quite that brave. But like, my the mum friend said, oh, I go to this group, do you want to come along with me? And like, it sounded like the last thing I wanted to do, but I was like, well, I can't be making all this noise about wanting to try new things and then say no to like the first thing. So I think it's just about saying yes to things sometimes, like, obviously not things that literally strike fear into your heart and make you feel like terrible, but just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a bit more. And I think just being like upfront with people, like I literally said to somebody the other day when I was in the book signing, like, oh, like I'm trying to make friends, do you want to be my friend?
I love that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure some people would say no to it, but like, really, then I don't ever have to see them again. I think that's the beauty of this like disjointed life that we live at the moment, where you're not surrounded by the same people every day, is you can take a chance. And I would love to hear that from somebody. Like, it's just nice to connect with people and be honest and say, oh my God, I'm so awkward. Like, but do you want to grab a coffee? Like,
do you know what? There is something, and we had Holly McNish, the poet, on our podcast, and I love her poetry, and I love the way she talks so honestly about things, you know. And she was saying, you know, sometimes I just want my friends to come around and, you know, like play with my hair because I find it quite comforting and quite nice. I don't want to go out for a drink and kind of talk about adult things. I want to go for a ride on my bike. And I think when we're adults, we find it really hard, and we kind of almost play this dance, don't we, about, you know, making friends and, you know, perhaps going to the same place or talking about books or whatever it is. Whereas actually saying, you know, do you want to be my friend? We can go out for a cup of tea. Yeah. There's something really refreshing and direct about that.
Yeah. And I think it's just about being honest. Like I talk about this in the book about being like how to deal with it when you're feeling shy or anxious. And it's like, just tell people, just arrive. Yeah. Like I did at the beginning of this call, before we started recording, I think we both came on and said, oh my God, I'm absolutely terrified. And even if you're talking to somebody who doesn't get it, like then they can kind of make a bit of an allowance for you. Like you walk into a room, you say, oh my God, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, like I have no idea what's happening. Then the people around you can like give them the opportunity to make you feel a bit more comfortable. And it probably makes them feel more comfortable because they know why you're behaving the way that you are.
I mean, it's an instant icebreaker, isn't it, to tell someone how you feel or what you want, or because we spend so much of our life trying to read between the lines. And something else you talk about in your book, which is a place you'd like to go in terms, for me on this worksheet, I would like to challenge my self-limiting beliefs. So for me, doing things on video, I've recently, my job's changed and I have to do more things on video, and I find it excruciating because I can't do it. Like I use my hands too much, I talk too quickly, all those things. But you go through self-limiting beliefs in the book and you encourage people to look at what they are. And can you chat a bit more about that and where you've experienced self-limiting beliefs?
Oh, I think probably everywhere. But yeah, I think that I'm sure it's not just me, but like I think we've all got this like critical voice inside us that so often just wins, because it's like, you can't do that, like you've never done that before, so there is no evidence that you'll be able to do it. Like being shy, I was just constantly like worried about doing the most basic things, like even going into a shop, like if I didn't know where the counter was, or you know, like if there's nobody at the counter and you have to get some, like a situation like that would have just put me into a complete tailspin. And so like I just had this voice in my head, like kind of demonstrating all of the things that I wouldn't ever be able to do because I was shy. Like, because you can look at somebody who's not shy and think, well, they can do that, they can like do X, Y, and Z. I'll never be able to do that because I'm shy. And I think for me, it's just about challenging things. Like sometimes you do have to throw yourself in the deep end, I think, but like we're not always ready to do that. Like life isn't just like a constant exercise in like terrifying yourself and facing your biggest fears. Like so sometimes challenging those beliefs can literally just be like one tiny thing. Like I'm too shy to do X. Let me come up with an example. But like I'm too shy to go into that shop, like and not be able to like go through with the transaction. Like going back, I was about 16 when I'm talking about this, so like I know that some people are very anxious,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was kind of my 16-year-old self facing the world, and literally just working out how to deal with it so that you can do it. Like, even if it's like you need to ask some, like your mom who's been into the shop where the counter is, or like ask a question about what's about to happen to you, in order for you to be able to do it. Like, make all those allowances for yourself, and then you've proved yourself wrong instantly. Like, just by doing those small things, and then it kind of, you can build it up as you go along, because you don't start, or I don't start by facing my biggest fear and like standing in front of a room of 200 people and like talking to them all about it. You start by going into a shop that you're feeling a bit anxious about going into, and then you take the next step or the next step. That's how I've always done it, and I still have many self-limiting beliefs, but I think you do, and you just work with them, work through them.
And I think that's so important, that start small. You know, don't feel like you have to, we were talking about mountains before, don't feel like you have to reach that mountain. So perhaps when you're looking at the places you'd like to go, you know, there is a ultimate down the line, but what's the first step to that? One of my colleagues at Happiful, Kat Nichols, talks about an evidence bank. So every time she goes and does a talk or a live or something that she feels anxiety about beforehand, she keeps any of the feedback or any of the photos that she's had from doing it, because actually then the next time she faces that anxiety or is asked to do something and she feels a bit unsure, she has an evidence bank of when she's done it before and she's enjoyed it and what it felt like and what the feedback was. So I think that's another thing with self-limiting beliefs is keep a nice pot of something that you can look at, or an email folder, whatever works for you, or draw what it felt like before, what it felt like afterwards.
Yeah, just a list of all the times that you've done something that your beliefs were telling you couldn't do. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly. So with the final place that you'd like to go, we've gone through the kind of 3 on this sheet. Is there somewhere specifically that you're ready to head to now?
Oh, I would like to, I don't know, I feel like I want to do something that kind of helps people. Like I don't know, and I don't know what it is yet, so I won't be able to fill in exactly what the road is, but whether it's like volunteering with an organization that does something, because it's weird, like I have this feeling where I'm like going through my career obviously, and it's going okay, and then I think, like, what have I done? Like, will I get to the end of my life and be like, well, what good things did I do? Very dramatic, but yeah, I think I really just want to sort of, especially with everything how it is at the moment, like I feel like it's time to sort of look at what I can do to make the world a ever so slightly better place in whatever way presents itself. So I think I've got some research to do there, but
that's a nice journey, isn't it? Doing that research and seeing what fits you and how you can help out in the best way that you can with everything we talked about before, with your personality, with your work, with your time and with your experiences. So I think that sounds great. If you've been watching and working along on the worksheets, then let us know on social media how it's gone for you. But also, I have to say, we have some bonus worksheets on happiful.com. So around self-limiting beliefs, around rest, which you talk about being so important, and around finances. So this has been wonderful, Veronica. I've really loved it. I really liked it. And you've made it so easy. I felt very anxious coming on today, and it's just been a nice chat. And Fang, somehow, just his presence there has been of comfort. I hope he's enjoyed it as well.
He's being really, look, he's on my kitchen counter at the moment.
What a good dog. I mean, my dog would be all over the place now, but what a good boy.
Because I can't do anything about it because I'm on video, can I? So he's allowed to do a lot of things, but he's not allowed on the dining table or the kitchen counter, which I think is probably the bare minimum you'd expect from a dog, but here he is.
Well, he's come to emotionally support you. That's what he's
Yes,
done.
he's very supportive.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you, and also again about your book?
Yeah, so I think probably the best place to find me is on Instagram at Veronica Dearly, or veronicadearly.com is my website, and you can find my book hopefully in most online bookshops, certainly, but pop into your local bookshop, and if they don't have it, I think the idea is that they order it in, and then you've done a wonderful supportive thing of supporting your local bookshop. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for today.
well, thank you very much for having me.